Welcome back, everyone. I'm in a less noisy environment today, so hopefully you can actually hear what I'm talking about. And I wanted to make another video talking about addiction, which I want to really present as my main sort of thing, my main sort of draw for mentorship clients and people who are interested in my work and talking to me. And of course, it's an experience which I feel deeply acquainted with in my own personal life, and also I feel like I can offer some useful information with regards to the psychological and as well the spiritual dynamics of addiction. I think most conventional therapy related to addiction tends to focus almost exclusively on the psychological aspects, and they fail to really address the deeper philosophical and spiritual dimensions of addiction which exist and must be addressed if we are to really heal. And now, what's coming to me right now regarding addiction, of course, is the root of addiction in terms of pain. And addiction, of course, like I've described many times, it's a form of coping mechanism. It's a solution to the pain that we experience in life. And we become attached to our addictions because they provide a certain feeling of relief. They provide a sense of soothing, a kind of maternal hug, the hug of a lover. But there is no real lover here, it's just the substance itself. And of course, I want to really emphasize and explore this sort of metaphor of seeing addiction as a kind of a flawed lover, because of course in my own life, when I was most addicted to drugs and substances, was during a period of profound loneliness and isolation. I didn't really have any real sincere relationships, no one who really cared about me. I was left almost entirely on my own, and obviously when you're entirely on your own, that's a very terrible state to be in. It's a very nihilistic state to be in. It feels like you look around in the world and there's no love there. It's just void, this dull apathy of the universe, this deep indifference. And when I put myself back in the state I used to be in, it was like I was trying to find some kind of love, some kind of positive feeling, some kind of care anywhere I could find it. And of course, I managed to find it with certain drugs, beginning with cannabis and with other substances, various stimulants and partying and, stimulants like, methadone, which is the main one I was addicted to, which is a niche sort of substance. It's a mix of cocaine and MDMA, and it's perhaps one of the most addictive highs there is. I was addicted to that, and as well ketamine, which is a dissociative. It sort of dissociates you from your feelings and can numb you out from reality for a brief moment. But of course, it can be very bingy. You can compulsively redose it, and I used to do many different drugs. I was a poly drug user, which means that you use many different drugs at the same time. And this is, I feel like my addiction really intensified during my last year at university, when I was particularly isolated. And there was a number of months where, I was just totally enraveled in the addictive cycle of chasing highs, the rush, the euphoria, and then following the euphoria, the disappointment that often triggers you to seek out more of your given drug of choice. And during that stage, like many addicts, I was just trying to find some way of soothing my distress. And in the void of any real meaningful social relationships, the substances filled that void. And the substances worked for a while. That's why they're so addictive, because they work. And however, in the ultimate nature of reality, that the substance is working is an illusion, of course, because it's a temporary solution. And eventually your body adjusts, your tolerance builds, you need more of that feeling in order to feel good. And eventually, as you indulge repeatedly, and I would indulge very, very heavily, particularly with methadone, which, if you do any kind of research into it, it's extremely compulsive. When you begin snorting a line of it, you literally, it's impossible to stop almost. I remember the first few times I flirted around with it, even in my second year at university when I wasn't really, really addicted to all my drugs. I was able to do a little bit and then stop. But in my last year at university, as various changes occurred in my neurochemistry, as I became more and more, that hunger of addiction grew deeper within me. It's like the addictive demons grew more powerful. I reached a point where if I had just one line, I knew I was going to go through my entire supply. And I remember there were a number of nights like that where I made the mistake of having too much in my supply, and I would literally go through an absurd amount of the substance all night. And obviously, when you're wired up on stimulants and you're sleep deprived, that is the ingredients for a very warped and distorted experience. And I remember looking at myself all sweaty and disheveled in the mirror like 4 a.m. in the morning and seeing that I've visibly lost some weight. That happens with methadone in particular, and as well other sort of stimulants like methamphetamine when you binge it, because it stresses your nervous system and puts you in that sympathetic action. You're very alert and wired, and you have no appetite at all. You can lose a lot of weight during those binges. And I remember during my period of, profound drug addiction where I was just hooked up on methadone and ketamine, I was unable to eat really. So I lost a lot of weight. I used to sustain myself with protein shakes almost exclusively because I just didn't have any desire to eat. My only desire was just getting high over and over again, over and over again. And yeah. And the euphoria, the rush is very, very intense, very, very pleasurable. Because particularly methadone, it releases a lot of dopamine and serotonin in your brain. And so there's that rush, cokey component combined with the MDMA lovey-dovey feeling. Almost use it as a sort of temporary antidepressant, maybe. At least it would ease my depression for whilst I was high, but then when the high wears off, you run out of the substance. The voidness, the depression, the anhedonia was really, really intense. I felt like a zombie. And that zombified feeling would just stick to me until I got more of the drug. And I think that's the story of many people suffering addictions. They feel like they need the drug to feel alive, to feel vibrant, to feel like life is worth living. Because when they don't have the drug, they just feel bored, devoid of any real care or love in the world. They love the drug. The drug is their friend. But as a friend who slowly takes from you your life force over time, over and over again. And for me, and for many people perhaps, there always reaches a point where the illusion of the high wears off, and the reality of the side effects that you've been accumulating start to become more and more pronounced and more visible. For me, I was noticing just damage to my body, to my organs, to my heart, to my circulatory system, to my mind itself. I was unable to really focus or think clearly. My head was just felt like it was, cotton wool. It had, in fact, sort of almost regressed me slightly to more juvenile ways of thinking. And I guess that's neurodegeneration. When people get old, they become more infantile sometimes when they have certain degeneration of their neural cells and stuff. And I guess in my experience of addiction, I witnessed a degeneration of my own brain, which is a very humbling experience. And it's an experience I will never forget. And it's an experience that I take with me with these videos. I think I have earned genuine wisdom from it. The wisdom of the wounded healer, I suppose. And the intention with these videos is to help people, going through similar things to what I did. And I want to tell you that, as terrible as it is, with time and dedication and commitment, you can heal a lot. I am 1,000 times different to the person I was nearly 2 years ago when I was in the pits of addiction. And I think that goes to show that even in a small period of time, you can heal a lot. Even in just a month or two, even a few weeks. I think you should stay really optimistic whilst on the path, and believe in your own capacity to heal. Because when you believe in that fact, that reality will come to you. I only started healing when I started to believe that I could rid myself from these things. And when I really believed that, these things are not helping me, they're actually hindering me, then my reality started to shift. I started to become more sovereign. But it was very, very difficult. And I'll perhaps make some more videos speaking more to helping you people in recovery, in the immediate aftermath, when let's say you've relapsed and you feel shitty, you feel that shame. How do we sort of deal with these uncomfortable feelings without going back to our addictions, But yeah, I think I'll leave that at that. But it's been interesting and insightful, and I'll see you next time.